And yeah, I'll chant some slokas to glorify the great teachers. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Malatam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kavabhashtasa Purakam Guru Ganadashisha Sambhushitam Chincha Chincha Samashtavena Nipunam Sri Rupa Patanogam Govinda Bidam Udvalam Bharatunam Bhaktan Vitam Shundaram Vande Vishwaguran Chidavi Bhagavat Pranohi Pijapadam Devam Devitanam Suchandavananam Balakachalam Chitam Sandvanandaparam Sarakavananam Barakivatam Buddhim Shri Siddhantaninam Subhaktalashitam Sarasvatanam Varam Banditam Shubaram Marekasanam Yashishwaram Sri Dharam Jai Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Swami Shri Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada Te Nama Guru Vagnam Shirasya Driksha Shakya Vaishya Swarupane Hari Krishna Ti Mantrana Prasya Prachatarane Visvachar Paviyar Devakananda Murtaye Shri Bhagavatam Madhuya Gitikana Pradayane Gora Shirupa Shidanta Saraswarine Shevane Radha Krishna Badam Boja Brangaya Guruve Namaha Jai Vanchakalpadrubhyascha Kripasandaveva Chapatitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So those three mantras, one was pranams to Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Maharaj, and that mantra was written by Srila Sridhar Maharaj about Srila Govinda Maharaj. And that second mantra, that was written by Srila Govinda Maharaj about Srila Sridhar Maharaj, his glories. And the last mantra, the third one, the Prabhupada, was written by Srila Govinda Maharaj. And there is translations, which, of course, we can sometimes go over. But by chanting those mantras, you're glorifying the Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela of the masters. So their name, Nam, Rupa, the form, the Guna, the qualities, and then the pastimes. So Krishna has his Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela. You have a Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela. By chanting Mahamantra, the Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela is revealed. So the name, the form, the qualities, and then the Leela is revealed. Hare Krishna. Yay. Yeah, so and one thing Srila Govinda Maharaj expressed once was that in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's writing style or poetry, he would often reveal, he would sort of ontologically establish poetry or song around Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela. Yeah, Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela. Hare Krishna. So let me just refresh my memory here. Sudakra. We've spoken before. You're on mute. So, Hare Krishna. Dandavats.
Dandavats.
Yeah. So that's good. We've got sort of Alex and our friend. So what do you prefer to be called? So, yes.
Vyasadev Das.
Vyasadev, yeah, Vyasadev. Not Vyas, but Vyasadev. Okay. Jenna and Dale, have you met Vyasadev before?
Only in video, right?
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, brother. Hey.
Is this the first time you guys are meeting? No.
I can't be
familiar, but
video before.
I would say officially, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been, you know, I said hello once before, but I haven't been able to make a bunch of these. But
yeah, I think I remember your face from some point.
Dropping in as I can, you know. So
yeah. And Alex, do you know, have you met Yasadev Prabhu before?
Afraid I have not.
Okay.
Hi, Alex.
So it's
Hi.
new introductions. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Great to meet you.
Me too.
Awesome.
Fun. This is so nice. Nice big group tonight.
Yeah.
So we're reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, if everyone has a PDF, and text 43 is where we got up to last time, which could be like page 67 on the actual photocopy or 96 on the PDF, but it's always different person to person. So hopefully we all find the same place.
Awesome. We're reading pre-76 Macmillan, which Jenna, does everyone have the Bhagavad Gita, like the 76? I think it's the 76 Macmillan version.
Is it PDF in the chat?
Yeah, I think it.
If you guys, Maharaj, if everyone, if you want to start reading, I can just pull down the link and send it in the chat if you want to get started on the
Okay.
read.
Thank you.
Yeah, so whoever feels inspired to read, text 43. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay, I'll start, no problem.
Yeah.
Text 43. Utsanna kula dharmanam manushyanam janardana narake niyatam vaso bhavatati anushruma. Translation goes, O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those who destroy family traditions dwell always in hell. Arjuna bases his argument not on his own personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. That is the way of receiving real knowledge. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being helped by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. There is a system in the Varnashrama institution by which one has to undergo the process of ablution before death for his sinful activities. One who is always engaged in sinful activities must utilize the process of ablution called the prayashchita. Without doing so, one surely will be transferred to hellish planets to undergo miserable lives as the result of sinful activities.
So just one quick overview. The fact that we're all hearing Bhagavad Gita and connecting with Bhagavad Gita and the disciplic succession and the great acharyas, what's being presented here is for general human. But it is true, Prayaschita is all of these things, and even Shraddha ceremony, all of these things. For one who takes to the path of Bhakti, these things are not so relevant. Gurudev said these are for general people who are following general Vedic tradition. But once you're coming into the lineage of the path of Bhakti, see, you're now active in positive progressive immortality. So your regular connection and service and relationship with the higher is already established. So your position after death is already secured for continuation in bhakti. So this is for punya and for general maintenance and clearing of sin, clearing of tamasic, rajasic reaction within the phenomena. So just to, overview that, because otherwise practitioners can be thinking, oh yeah, this applies to us and we need to do this. And then of course we can get lost inside the Vedic forest. So what is being given through these teachings, what we're specifically reading, is the essence of Veda. And you see that the essence of the Gita is surrendered to Krishna. And surrendering to Krishna is the process of bhakti, which we are presently engaged in. So we are now in the active process of surrendering to the Supreme Entity. Even the fact that we've all turned up for this book club is part of that. So that's very, and no doubt that's a great fortune, definitely. So is everyone, are we all on the same page there? Alex, are you tuned in there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tuned in.
Yeah. And Vyasadeva, you're all good? I think Jenna sent the link there, so. We're now text 44. It's very interesting. I spoke to a practitioner yesterday. He was pointing out the differences between, reproductions of the Gita post 77 as opposed to pre 77, and the changes. Yeah, like it's interesting because one or two times, not very often, but on the odd occasion when Sudarshan's been reading, he'll have omitted one particular word, and I can see even one word omitted, that the explanation of that sentence or the paragraph can be completely changed. So I can see how there's some controversy around this omitting specific or changing specific words. So generally not recommended, like the writings of Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Yeah, we won't be changing. There will be new transcription to the books, but the essence, like I pulled up, this is just a little thing about the translations. I pulled up a godbrother who made a translation of the Kirtan Guide, and the original was the Gurudev's glories is spread throughout the universe. Ebijasa Jusik Tribhuvana. Tribhuvana means tribu, the tri-worlds. And he decided, let's just make it the world. And I thought, no, like what? So you've now contracted the movement of the Paramahamsa to just this world. So anyway, not many people had sort of overviewed that translation, but it's interesting, words here and there. So we want to try to stay as close to the spirit of the text as possible.
Maharaj?
Yes.
This one says it was printed in 72.
That's okay. Yeah, that's perfect.
Good.
I think the first printing was 72, and then the last one that we'll read from, I think the last printing was 76, Macmillan. So 72, 74, 76, but anything post, there's controversy that the editors have been subtracting, changing words in some of the later editions. So, I mean, let's stay with what was going on when Prabhupada was present. There's already controversy anyway, because he was a very strong, hammering style preacher of bhakti. But at least let's stay with his original, what he signed off in his books. Understanding and putting it into context, that's all something else. But yeah, at least the original text. So 72 is good. All right, text 44.
Text 44. Aho bat mahat papam kartam vyavasitam vayam yad rajya sukhalobhina hantam swajanam udyataha. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness. Driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful acts as the killing of one's own brother, father, or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world, but Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principles and therefore takes care to avoid such activities. Text 45. Yadi mam apratikaram ashatram shastra panayaha Dhartarashtra Ranehanyus Tan me kshemataram bhavet. I would consider it better for the sons of Dhritarashtra to kill me unarmed and unresisting rather than fight with them. It is the custom, according to Kshatriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna, however, in such an enigmatic position, decided he would not fight if he were attacked by the enemy. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. This is a very relatable line. Like sometimes I wonder, I'm like people who are fighting in parliament and they're creating wars and stuff. I'm like, I can't even relate myself to that mentality. You know, there's always a better solution than fighting it out.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, you know, I mean, ultimately, like Prabhupada used to say, you know, the real United Nations is coming into the consciousness that we are all sons and daughters under a common father. So the spiritual re-education of human society is what will bring that awareness, you know. So change the consciousness, you'll change the man. So, you know, here, the other side, they're hell-bent on fighting, but the nature of a great devotee, like Arjuna, he doesn't want to do this. But as we'll see in chapter 2, it's ultimately the will of the higher that this is being arranged. And in that, in doing his duty, he will kill. It's true, Arjuna will do that. But then Krishna then will go on to explain what you consider to be killing is not, because there is no death. So this is, you know, on one level it's not good, but the other side, who he was killing were of an asuric nature. And yeah, so that type of, he didn't have choice. The battle had to take place. But you'll be glad to know all those soldiers that left in the presence of Krishna, they all attained liberation. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, number 46, text 46, which is the last one, I believe, before chapter 2. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktavarjunaha sankhye rathopastha upavishat vishrajya sharam chapam shoka samvigna manasaha. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purpose to the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Awesome. The most difficult chapter actually to get through. Many people, when I would distribute Bhagavad Gita as a young man on the streets, people go, oh, the first chapter, it was all these names and all these personalities. It was like a chronological, ancient, like family ancestry. But I said, no, in the second chapter, it'll move into the philosophy. So again, you know, just overview, first chapter, the relationships, setting the scene, observing the armies. So always to keep in context that Arjuna is being played by the player. This term I often use. So he's playing the role of someone in relativity who is observing and taking the phenomena to be real. which is, you know, the army, the soldiers, the war, the battle, the fighting. But as we see in the second chapter now, his doubts and his relative perception or provincial consciousness, which he's been thrown into by the higher, is going to be adjusted, which is our position. So it's sometimes said that the Bhagavad Gita is the handbook for the human form of life. Prabhupada's quote. Yay.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat for now. So I'm going to read from chapter 2. So this is verse number 1. Sanjay Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripayam Vishum Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana. Translation. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. Purport. Material, compassion, lamentation, and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. Compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. The word Madhusudana is significant in this verse. Lord Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna wanted Krishna to kill the demon of misunderstanding that had overtaken him in the discharge of his duty. No one knows where compassion should be applied. Compassion for the dress of drawing man is senseless. A man fallen in the ocean of nescience cannot be saved simply by rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body. One who does not know this and laments for the outward dress is called a Sudra, or one who laments unnecessarily. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, and this conclude was not expected from him. Lord Krishna, however, can dispel the lamentation of the ignorant man, and for this purpose, the Bhagavad Gita was sang by him. This chapter instructs us in self-realization and analytical study of the material body and the spirit soul, as explained by the Supreme Authority, Lord Sri Krishna. This realization is possible when one works without attachment to futitive results and is situated in the fixed concept of real self. So would you like to conflict on it, Guru Maharaj?
Can I just your particular, are you reading from a physical book, Rohit Prabhu, or are you reading from a PDF?
Actually, I have an app here, so I install an application on my phone, so maybe I'm reading from this. So is that okay, or is it have different?
It's slightly, yeah, there's some things that are coming up different. If you've installed an app, you're on Zoom now, right? So if you download the link that Jenna sent, then we'll all be on the same page.
Sure. I mean, I have kind of, the internet is kind of, not working that much here, so let me just try.
Okay. Otherwise, otherwise we can just stay with the spirit of what we're reading, and if there's any challenge to some word throwing something off, we can discuss that. Let's go. Hold on. Hare Krishna.
Shall I take a verse while Rohit
Yeah.
tries to download?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So text 2. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalam Idam Visame samupastitam anarya justam asvagyam akirti karam Arjuna. Translation. The Supreme Person, Bhagavan, said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy." Infamy, yeah?
Yeah.
Another word I don't know.
Yeah, infamy is it's sort of Old English, but it's infamy, infamous, the opposite of famous. So infamy.
Okay.
So rather than being famous, you get the opposite of famous. Yeah, infamy.
Okay. Purport. Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. Therefore, Lord Krishna is referred to as Bhagavan throughout the Gita. Bhagavan is the ultimate in the absolute truth. Absolute truth is realized in 3 phases of understanding, namely Brahman, or the impersonal all-pervasive spirit, Paramatma, or the localized aspect of the Supreme within the heart of all living entities, and Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this conception of the absolute truth is explained thus. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmati paramatmati Bhagavan iti sabdyate. The absolute truth is realized in 3 phases of understanding by the knower of the absolute, and all of them are identical. Such phases of the absolute truth are expressed as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. From the Srimad, from the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam?
I think, see here, because the Bhagavad Gita doesn't have 1 to 11. It only has chapters and then text. So this must be Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 11.
Okay.
I guess they just don't use the word S in front.
Sure.
From what I believe, yeah.
Cool. And hey, Rohit, just feel free to like unmute and let us know if if it works out with the PDF. I'll keep reading until then. These 3 divine aspects can be.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem.
Actually, my internet is so bad here, so this file is not downloading.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it okay
Yeah.
if we give you the reading for next week? Does that work, Maharaj? Do you approve of that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rohit. I know you really wanted to read this chapter, but it seems they're a bit different in your book.
Yeah.
Sorry, brother.
Yeah.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay. These 3 divine aspects can be explained by the example of the sun, which also has 3 different aspects, namely the sunshine, the sun's surface, and the sun planet itself. One who studies the sunshine only is the preliminary student. One who understands the sun's surface is further advanced, and one who can enter into the sun planet is the highest. Ordinary students who are satisfied by simple understanding the sunshine, its universal pervasiveness, and the glaring effulgence of its impersonal nature, may be compared to those who can realize only the Brahman feature of the absolute truth. The student who has advanced still further can know the sun disk, which is compared to knowledge of the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. And the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, the Bhaktas, or the transcendentalists, who have realized the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth, are the topmost transcendentalists. Although all students who are engaged in the study of the absolute truth are engaged in the same subject matter. The sunshine, the sun disk, and the inner affairs of the sun planet cannot be separated from one another, and yet the students of the 3 different phases are not in the same category. The Sanskrit word Bhagavan is explained by the great authority, Parasara Muni, the father of Vasudeva. The Supreme Personality who possesses all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation is called Bhagavan. There are many persons who are very rich, very powerful, very beautiful, very famous, very learned, and very much detached, but no one can claim that he possesses all riches, all strength, etc. entirely. Only Krishna can claim this because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No living entity, including Brahma, Lord Shiva, or Narayan, can possess opulences as fully as Krishna. Therefore, it is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to or above him. He is the primeval Lord, or Bhagavan, known as Govinda, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. Ishvaraha Paramaha Krishnaha Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarvakarana Karanam. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is the supreme because none can excel him. He is the supreme person and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda and the cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. In the Bhagavatam also there is a list of many incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Krishna is described as the original Personality of Godhead, from whom many, many incarnations and personalities of Godhead expand. Etekamsha kalaha pumsaha Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Uyakulam Lokam Mridyanti Yuge Yuge. All the lists of the incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Bhagavatam, sorry, I just couldn't decide which one it was. 1.3.28. Do we need to take a pause at all? Does anybody need to jump in with questions or reflections from you, Maharaj? I guess we nearly have to break, so.
Yeah, just one thing is the word Bhagavan. The first time I heard the word Bhagavan was Bhagavan Sri Rajneesh, which was prior to me coming to Bhakti because my brother and sister. And I wasn't aware of the name Bhagavan. So Bhagavan means one who possesses those 6 qualities, which is all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. So sometimes great gurus or personalities in India, they can, sometimes that name is used, but very rarely. So in the case of Osho or this Rajneesh character, no, that's because, you have to be a Paramahamsa. So when Swami Maharaj Prabhupada took the name Prabhupada, the disciples of Srila Saraswati Thakur, they began adopting the name Bhagavan for Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which is appropriate because the pure servitor of Bhagavan also carries the same qualities of Bhagavan because he's delivering Bhagavan. So sometimes when I'm doing the Prema Davani, you'll hear me go, Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Which doesn't mean that he is Bhagavan, but he's the best servitor of Bhagavan. And so like Lord Brahma is saying here, the Ishvaraha Parama, only Krishna can claim to be the supreme, above Brahma, Shiva. So only this claim is made by all the different gods. So once Max Muller, he was a German philosopher, he was asked once who is the supreme amongst the Hindu gods, and he came to the conclusion all of them were doing something, but when he saw that Krishna was playing, he went, oh, this one is not working, this god, so he must be playing. That the one who is playing must be the supreme. And also, not only Max Muller, but there was also once a Muslim like prophet / Malik, who also came to a similar conception. Because, you know, many people have studied Vedic theology. So even from a theosophical or theological perspective, the position of Krishna, he's never doing anything, he's just playing. So supreme, Bhagavan. And also everything is there in full and toto in the relationship with Krishna, Shyamasundar, the Santa, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and all the way to Madhura. And so this is why even Narayan is mentioned, as it can't be full with Narayan, because he is in awe and reverence with his devotees. Santa, Dasya, Narayan conception by Kuntha. Someone asked me that the other day. Oh, Sudishan, you asked me about Nrsingadev worship. Why when, you know, Prabhupada established Mahaprabhu's worship and Radha Govinda's worship in the temples around the world, why is Nrsingadev worshipped every day? So that wasn't supposed to continue. That was done while Prabhupada was present. He asked that if the disciples want to pray for the Guru's health, they can pray to Lord Nrsingadev to protect and to help protect his health. So every day the devotees would do that. They would pray. Somehow or other that became something they did every day. But generally, in the presence of the worship of Mahaprabhu and Radha Govinda, we're not regularly chanting Lord Nrsingadev's glorification. But we will when we travel or when we hop in a vehicle or on the Nrsingadev Chaturdasi, which is the appearance day. But anyway, yeah, Bhagavan, Swayam Bhagavan, Radha Govinda, Mahaprabhu is a separate and supreme Ishvara. So the lineage that we're in is specific to that worship, Gauranga and Radha Govinda. So not Narayan, not Brahma, not Shiva, not even Nrsingadev, but respect and worship of Nrsingadev on his appearance, but not focus to any other incarnation except Bhagavan, Shyamasundar.
Thanks, Maharaj. Finish text 2. If someone wants to volunteer for text 3, but Rohit would love to read the Sanskrit. So if you want to, the next person that reads, just pause for Rohit to read the Sanskrit, because I think chapter 2 is dear to him. So I'll just finish text 2, okay? Therefore, Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, the source of both the Supersoul and the impersonal Brahman. In the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna's lamentation for his kinsman is certainly unbecoming, and therefore Krishna expressed his surprise with the word kutas, wherefrom. Such unmanly sentiments were never expected from a person belonging to the civilized class of men known as Aryans. The word Aryan is applicable to persons who know the value of life and have a civilization based on spiritual realization. Persons who are led by the material conception of life do not know that the aim of life is realization of the absolute truth, Vishnu or Bhagavan, and they are captivated by the external features of the material world, and therefore they do not know what liberation is. Persons who have no knowledge of liberation from material bondage are called non-Aryans. Although Arjuna was a Kshatriya, he was deviating from his prescribed duties by declining to fight. His act of cowardice is described as befitting the non-Aryans. Such deviation from duty does not help one in the progress of spiritual life, nor does it even give one the opportunity to become famous in this world. Lord Krishna did not approve of the so-called compassion of Arjuna for his kinsman. Brutal, if I may say.
Yeah, it's so that you could see, you know, Krishna is poking at the phenomena, and Arjuna's attachment to the phenomena. Yeah, this is not befitting an Aryan. so we're in the Aryan sisterhood and brotherhood. This is what we've joined up for. But in the true sense of the word, it's a shame that actually the word Aryan has been sort of to some degree hijacked by other agendas. But it's a very beautiful word, Aryan, you know, Arya, Aryan. No doubt there will be some very strong, powerful Vaishnavas in the future that won't care for the political correct or whoever bastardized it in the past, and may reintroduce the name back to its original context. Same with the swastika. But yeah, like if you were to get a swastika on your arm or on your forehead, or to get tattooed the Aryan Brotherhood on your shoulder, you may be subject to all sorts of projection. But the fact is, these original Vedic Vaishnav terms are coming from the Veda. They're all sacred symbols. And interesting because the Star of David, or the this yantra, which it was also taken from Vedanta, which represents the masculine and feminine in harmony. So interesting that the different sort of clashes in our modern history between the Judaic, you know, state of Israel and Nazi Germany, and the war or the clash in World War II, both their symbols came from Vedic origin. Interesting. But it's good to have these things in context, because we, like, you know, if it's not that we shy away from using the word Aryan or, you know, explaining these points, but we'll be, you know, sensitive, or we'll be quick to make sure that we explain it in context, you know. But it's not that just because it's been hijacked by a group in the 40s that we can't use the terms. So, interesting. Yeah, and then of course, Arjuna is, like we were saying before, he's playing the role of somebody in relative consciousness. So now, you know, Krishna will begin to sort of, instigate, pushing and getting him to reflect on what he's considering as compassion and love, and the stance of non-violence that will be challenged actually by Krishna. Krishna will challenge him in the upcoming texts. So any other reflections there, folks? Comments or additions?
And is that from the influence of Yoga Maya that he's...
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, ultimately that was the conclusion that the Acharyas revealed when those questions, that specific question was asked on numbers of occasions. That was the response. Yeah.
I was just going to comment that I guess from Krishna, it's like tough love in a way, because, you know,
this is the tough love, yeah.
He says so-called compassion, which is interesting. Like, I like that. It's cool. He's kind of just calling Arjuna out. Like, yeah, that's all I have to say. That was cool.
Yeah, because it's like so-called compassion. It's like this, right? Say, for instance, you're a parent and your son's become a heroin addict and you're enabling the heroin addict. And then the experts come in and go, your so-called love or so-called compassion or so-called feelings for your son are actually destructive. The expert will come in and say, you're enabling this person to head toward their death. But I love him, and that's why I give him the $20 and the $50. But then he spends the money on heroin or crack or whatever he's doing. So you'll see, you know, they have documentaries, they have the rehab or something, and they call on the experts, and the experts get tough. And then that's called tough love stage, where they do it's called intervention. Then they call the the son in, and then the grandmother and the grandfather. And so, yeah, so in the same way, rehab for the soul. This is Arjuna's rehab for the soul. But it happens to be the supreme entity that is doing the tough love. Awesome. Actually, that idea of rehab for the soul came over the years to me through, because we're addicted to the Maya, So mostly soft love, chant Mahamantra, take prasadam, but it is true sometimes the masters, depending on the students, there may have to be a little bit of tough love. Sometimes the tough love is also separation. That's another way that you also teach students, is through separation. So Arjuna, yeah, he's getting nudged at.
So who would like to read from text 3, the translations and purports?
I can do it if you'd like.
Thanks, Leji. And just pause for the Sanskrit for Rohit.
Yeah, sweet.
Okay, should I go for it? The verse?
Yes.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So, Klaivyam swagama partha netadva upapadyate shuddharam hridaya daurvalyam tyakto uttishta parantapa.
O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. Arjuna was addressed as the son of Pritha, who happened to be the sister of Krishna's father, Vasudeva. Therefore, Arjuna had a blood relationship with Krishna. If the son of a Kshatriya declines to fight, he is a Kshatriya in name only. And if the son of a Brahmana acts impiously, he is a Brahmana.
Brahmana. So Brahmana.
Brahmana. Oh, okay. Yeah. Brahmana in name only. Such Kshatriya and Brahmana are unworthy of sons of their fathers. Therefore, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. Therefore, Krishna said that such an attitude in Arjuna did not fit his personality. Arjuna must argue that he would give up the battle on the grounds of his magnanimous attitude. For the most respectable Bhishma and his relatives. But Krishna considered that sort of magnanimity not approved by authority. Therefore, such magnanimity or so-called non-violence should be given up by persons like Arjuna under the direct guidance of Krishna.
Yeah, so so the dharma for Arjuna as a Kshatriya is as a warrior. So, you know how we've spoken about Vana and Ashram, Vana Ashram. So that question came up. I asked the question, are we followers of Vana Ashram? I think I asked Sudashan and he said no. And I said, yes, that's correct. We're actually not followers of Varnashram. We're followers of Daivi Varnashram. So bhakti is service to Guru Gauranga. So the utility of what Veda gives us as the description of what is Varna and Ashram, we're utilizing Varna and Ashram to engage in the seva, the different tendencies of Varna and also through the vehicles of different ashram. But Srila Maharaj once went on to explain that even you may not be brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, you may be in another position, but still can go on with your seva. So sometimes even in the West or in this system, that system, you may not fit within any category. You may be a blend, you may be so blended between Sudra, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya nature, you don't know. So we're not establishing the definitions or the societal structure of Vana and Ashram. We're only utilizing the tendency of the inherent natures to engage in bhakti, service to Krishna, Guru Gauranga. But anyway, as a Kshatriya, warrior, that was Arjuna's predominant, nature. So Krishna wanted that service from him through that medium of nature. But see, naturally, he didn't want to fight because he's a great devotee. So you can be a Kshatriya and not be a Bhakta, but you can be a Kshatriya Bhakta. So Arjuna is a Kshatriya Bhakta, because the other side, they're all Kshatriyas, warriors, but they're not like Arjuna, they're not pure devotees.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question?
Yes, Alex, yes.
So I feel like this may be discussed more so in another chapter, but we see Arjuna in a state that is where it appears he has fallen into Maya or relativity, and yet he is still a pure devotee. So does this mean a pure devotee is still susceptible to Maya? I guess I'm just trying to understand where Arjuna is on the transcendental platform.
It's only, it's been expressed that it's only apparent. It's on the surface. So he's playing the role. When sometimes these points would come up, it's like Jai and Vijay are the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. We know in the Leela with Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha that, and in the position of Dantavakra and Shishupal, Ravan and Kumbhakarna, and then Jagai Madai, they're appearing as Asura. So they're being played by the Mahamaya, or you could even say, the Yoga Maya, in the sense that the Yoga Maya is arranging the Leela for Krishna to have fighting tendency. So it's then played out in the realm of the Devi, Mahamaya, but it's for the purpose of the will of the higher. So in that Leela with Prahlad Maharaj and his fighting, his father was fighting and killing, and, the play of Hiranyakashipu, for all intents and purposes, he really is the demon, but he's playing that role because through that, Lord Nrsingadev appears. So the Leela fighting, it's called Asura Mohan Leela. Or for the benefit of us as human, Arjuna plays the role of sort of being bewildered on the battlefield, which is like us. We're bewildered by the phenomena, and then we're instructed, hey, folks, it's not real. You're actually eternal spiritual beings. And then we'll go into verses, it will be explained to us that there's reincarnation, there actually isn't death. Will be explained the three modes of material nature. So through Arjuna as the instrument, the whole Vedic revelation of who and what we truly are and the real destination is going to be explained. So it's as a play, but it's a special play, because we can't say, I'm like Arjuna, I'm just going into some bewilderment at the moment. It's like, no. But it is true, and this is where, just because these points, just to give sort of some context, Srila Sridhar Maharaj once expressed amongst Westerners that sometimes it is the will of Krishna that even amongst his devotees, he may keep some anartha present in them for his purpose. And he didn't say pure devotees, he said sadhaka, practitioner. Now, in that context, like, how do we take that into context? So, for examples, when we see gurus or acharyas in the Western world since the inception of Bhakti coming in 65 through Prabhupada, we see what not to do and what to do in Bhakti. So even good sadhakas have sometimes come under the temporary spell of different temptation. So through their example, the rest are shown, don't do this. And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj said actually that Judas played that role for Christ. So Judas was a disciple of Christ, but so who played who? We think that Judas played Christ. It's the opposite. Christ played Judas. The higher needed a Judas, and so Judas got to play that role. And actually that role was a tough role to play because, obviously, he had a tough time after the event. So any connection with Bhakti, so we were bringing up this point about what is the case with those who are living in the dustbin of the acharyas? Those who have committed some offense or are being blocked or checked. So they eventually will be let out, or they'll get purified of their anomaly or their temporary suspended animation, but they show the rest what not to do. So there are many aspects where we can see this is the play of the player playing the played, but for his purpose. So Arjuna is being played by the higher for this purpose.
Thank you. That's fascinating.
Yeah, all these expressions and reflections have come from Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Something Prabhupada, he mentioned that this was the work of, it was at the internal energy that was arranging this, and that Arjuna was playing the role.
I see. Thank you for explaining.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Did Rohit want to read the Sanskrit again at all? Or?
Sure. Arjuna uvacha katham vishvam aham sankhe dronam cha madhusudana ishvam pratiyutsami pujarva adisudana.
Arjuna said, translation, Arjuna said, O killer of Madhu, Krishna, how can I counteract with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? Purport. Respectable superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Dronacharya, the teacher, are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counteracted. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. Even if they are sometimes harsh in behavior, they should not be harshly treated. Then how is it possible for Arjuna to counteract them? Would Krishna even attack his own grandfather? How do you pronounce this, Maharaj?
Ugrasena.
Ugrasena, or his teacher, and Sandipani Muni. These were some of the arguments by Arjuna to Krishna?
Yeah, so counterattack. How he can do that, you know. I mean, the arguments, for all intents and purposes, they're very good arguments. Krishna, like, I like, hold on, I can't be fighting with the brothers and the cousins and the teachers. Yeah. See, this is it's not that this is not applicable right here and now. This is going on. This play's going on right now, folks, between different missions. Different kings are fighting with each other. And some are withdrawing, some are keeping separate, because it's all as a play. Srila Maharaj said after the breakdown of the Gaudiya Math, he said that the different groups that formed and branches, which was a war, it's a type of war going on between these kings, these rajas, after Saraswati Thakur. He said, ultimately, we took it as the will of the higher, the separation, the division. But then he said the division, ultimately the way we harmonize is that the diversity came as a result of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. But then the diversity, we want to still offer the unity of respect to all the different branches and groups. So even the antithesis, who are the other side, the Kauravas, Krishna will go on to explain actually that there's a synthesis coming to this, which is they're all going to get liberation and there is no death. See? So that's the synthesis. Because so the antithesis is, so first there's a thesis, there's going to be a war, the antithesis, and then Krishna is the synthesis. He explains away the doubt, the the clash, the trauma.
But Maharaj, the Kauravas, because they're anti-Krishna still, they don't have any relationship. Is it that they attain impersonal?
Yeah, they unlike the Pandavas and the devotees, the Kauravas viewed Krishna from a relative perspective. So they, at best, they can get liberation. Yeah, they were envious, yeah. So, but then you see, it also shows that those who don't develop a relationship with Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at best, all they can attain is the impersonal. And you'll see that many asuric tendencies do, you know, they want to exploit, but ultimately they do subscribe to a state of mukti. So mukti for us is it's release from the negative, but it's nothing positive because it's deep slumber, you know. So, you know, when we first started our discussions, we would go over the, you know, bhakti, mukti, bhakti. So we only know bhakti and mukti. Bhakti is a new prospect. So this idea that we've fallen from Vaikuntha or Goloka, we don't subscribe to that. No, that's not correct. Bhakti is a new prospect. So the asura, yeah. But still, remember that for them to be in the presence of the Supreme Entity, that they may have a asuric tendency, but they are being blessed with liberation, which of course is you know, freedom. Yeah. So even in the anti-sentiment, in the presence of the Godhead, that still brings some benefit. Just like it is true, even in the presence of the representatives of the higher, if you go anti, you're still connected, but you're connected in the dustbin. So remember we've always said any connection with the Vaishnava, any connection with Bhakti is always auspicious. So, but there's pleasing the Vaishnava and there's being tolerated by it. Don't just be tolerated. Try to please. So the Kauravas are being tolerated. But are they pleasing? No. So they do go into the dustbin of the higher. They go into the mukti, which is the effulgence. Krishna doesn't have to deal with them there because they're just buzzing around in his effulgence. So any point in bhakti is always auspicious. But the idea is to be progressive in bhakti, not just to be in the outer peripheral or to be in Acharya's dustbin.
Keshava Maharaj, we have a question from Vyasadeva.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, my question was, because it was you were saying that it's auspicious to be like, it's auspicious for them to be on the other side of the battlefield, essentially.
No, the fact that they're in the presence of the Supreme is auspicious.
Right.
It's auspicious for them. But
even while being on the other side.
Yeah. But general auspicious, not bhakti, not nitya sukriti. So it was their good sukriti to be there, it's true, even though they were anti, because they left their bodies in the presence of the Supreme. So it's like this. Many came into the field of Prabhupada. So it was auspicious that they came into his field, but then who took advantage of the opportunity? See, God and his agents is basically the crossroads for the jiva. So when the jiva leaves the nirvana, they have two choices, bhakti or bhukti. So they've left mukti, right? So we know this. Fundamentally, we've gone over this many times. We live in mukti, that's our home. We come out, the soul is somewhere or other moved within the equilibrium and then comes into differentiation, two waves, bhakti, bhukti. So in the presence of Krishna, that chance is again offered. So the Kauravas, they had the chance. Krishna's there, they could choose bhakti, or they could choose thesis or antithesis. They decided antithesis. So in the presence of the great masters, many come into the forum of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, so many, and then they can choose. They can choose to embrace and honor or to be apathetic. One devotee in Mayapur, I don't know if you know these twins, Jananavi Das and Pankajangari. They're the quite famous pujaris of Radha Madhava in Mayapur, old disciples of Prabhupada. And anyway, many years, I think I've told this story. Have I told this? Maybe Sudarshan. Anyway, so I was in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe 91, I was sent to the Brisbane airport to pick him up. He had flown in from Calcutta. And I was a young brahmachari. I was probably, 85 I came. So I was like 5-6 years in the mission, the Western mission. And, he was a senior brahmachari and a senior disciple of Prabhupada, joined in 1971 in London. And so as I was driving him back to New Govardhan, which is northern New South Wales, I said to him, like as a young man, I'm here, I'm chanting, I'm practicing, I want to be successful in bhakti. Like, what would you recommend? Like, what would you say would be the essence? What's all this for? Like, did Prabhupada ever reveal anything or share anything or give you any insight? And he was sort of quiet and he goes, yeah, Prabhupada did share something with him. And he said, I'll tell you what Prabhupada expressed to me. And as I was driving along, he was saying, so, because he's got a funny sort of English accent, a little bit eccentric, and but still to this day, very sincere, dedicated 24/7 in service to the deity. lifelong brahmacharis. Both, they're a set of twins. They're twins. And he also joked with me and he said, oh, you're also a twin. And I said, yeah, is your twin also in service? And I said, oh, he's, living in Ireland and doing so many things. Anyway, so he said to me, so all the chanting in the morning, the Mangalarti, the Rath Yatras, the festivals, the prasad distribution, the Gayatri mantra, the Sannyas mantra, the temples, the canvassing, everything we're doing that Prabhupada has given, it's all for one purpose. This is what Prabhupada told him. And then he was telling me this as a young brahmachari. He said, it's all for one purpose. It's for the purpose that when you somehow or other come into the arena of a qualified or sincere or substantial devotee, that somehow or other you're able to do this instead of that, which is to show apathy. Because in that split moment, as soon as you go like this, whatever that Vaishnava holds, they'll share and connect you. He said the sadhana is all for that purpose. So our previous sadhana in previous lives is determining on what type of sangha or association or acharya that will connect us. It's a fact. And Prabhupada was sharing that with him. So he told me that. So you see, it's auspicious to come into the arena, but then more auspicious is to be active and take advantage, because Krishna was present. The Pandavas, they loved Krishna. The Kauravas rejected. Like in the Melbourne, when Prabhupada came to Melbourne, some people were like, Jai Prabhupada. But the skinheads at the back were like, who's this guy? He's like, And there were people that were anti, of course. They're Sukriti. So it was auspicious for them to be in the presence of the Siddha Mahapurush Vaishnava, but they didn't have sufficient purity to sort of do this at that time. But still, it's said that, here we go, this verse, Sadhu Sangha, Sava Shastrakaya, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sava Siddhi Hoy. The verdict of all revealed scriptures that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. One can. Means you're open, you see, in the presence of Krishna or the divine representative. So this is a big question, and the knock-on question is why? Why do some come into the presence of great masters and then activate and just, they do that immediately, and others just like, oh, who's that dude, He's just, they even project bias or prejudice, or how is that possible? It's a good question, isn't it? But anyway, according to Janana Vidas, the sadhana is to soften the heart so that when we do get that privilege, whether it's Krishna himself, Mahaprabhu, or an eternal associate, or one of the great teachers, if we show some respect or regard, immediately the higher will detect us. It's a fact.
Guru Maharaj, I have a question. Like in the epic of Mahabharata, why Krishna was on the side of Pandavas only? Because he could be on the side of also Kauravas, but why Krishna choose to, on the side of Pandavas only?
Krishna is always, he's always beckoned by love. He's impartial. He wanders here, there, everywhere. Those who show regard and love and affection, then they're always on his side and he's on their side. So
like the Kauravas, they didn't know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is that like they don't know about that, or like Krishna didn't reveal himself?
You see, for Krishna to reveal that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there has to be regard. There has to be some affection.
Okay.
It's like this. In order for you to know who Prabhupada was, you have to have some regard for him. Like if I was to say to you, is Prabhupada Bengali? Is he a sannyasi? Is he an acharya? Is Prabhupada an acharya? Is he Bengali? This is my question to you.
Yes, he was a Bengali. His name was like Abhayacharan. Yeah, so he was a Bengali.
That's all relative. That's all relative. That's external. He was in that role.
Yes.
He was playing that role. But if you develop
exactly.
but if you develop deep regard for him and his teachings, in time, he'll reveal to you who he really is. The same with Krishna, the same with anybody. If you see, love loves love. You know, when I often use this term, love loves love, the higher, if you show love and affection through active service, the Nam, Rup, Gun, Leela will be revealed to you, who they are. The Rup, the real Rup, the real. So the Kauravas, they didn't have affection for Krishna. So Krishna was a mystery. You see, when Krishna was in Mathura, everyone viewed him, that famous sloka, everyone viewed him differently. Some viewed him as death, some viewed him as the most beautiful, some viewed him as a great mystic. Yeah. So depending. So how we develop Nitya Sukriti toward Krishna is through his agents. So for instance, in a previous life, if you've, you know, if you've unbeknowingly to you, you've offered an apple or you've given a donation to some Vaishnava, Krishna will recognize that you're now serving. See, our development to where we are is a culmination of multiple services that we've offered to agents, and that accumulates as Nitya Sukriti, and then that builds to where now we're chanting Mahamantra, we're reading Bhagavad, to read Bhagavad Gita, to just read, to do what we're doing now, lifetimes, many, many lifetimes of dharmic or religious activity. And multiple lifetimes of pious activities that doesn't even compare to be allowed this chance. So we've done something definitely good and right in the past lives, no doubt. Definitely. What to speak of human life, but to be given the chance to even have darshan of a Paramahamsa's Bhagavad Gita. And to be, like Gurudev, as I was walking, I was listening to some lectures of Srila Govinda Maharaj. He said, to have the association of other sadhakas who are on the path and who are attracted to Krishna consciousness, that means many lifetimes of pious activities and even divine pious activity. So, Seva Adi Kora Diya Kora Nijadasi means, please give me the privilege of Seva. So, whatever blessings we have, we now want to increase those blessings. So, to be in this arena, to be in connection with Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Prabhupada or Srila Sridhar or Srila Govinda Maharaj, to be in the presence of each other where we're being reminded of these high ideals is a blessing. So now we're wanting to increase the blessing. So Vyasadeva and Alex, you are very, you're now 1 o'clock, is it? 12:30, 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
4:32.
It's pretty late. It's 1:32 a.m.
You are very, very, this is our privilege that you're staying up and giving us your happy and holy company, even though it's late. But we will eventually be restarting the, a Zoom meeting for your part of the world. So, don't despair. It won't always be the night shift. I've just had to do a few reiterations, but it will come back.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, but the privilege is all mine. It's great to have this program at this time of night when I could be mindlessly indulging in Aljapa.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's always nice. It's always nice. Yeah, it's always a privilege, and we have come up to our time, but I'm always amazed.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Excuse me? Sorry.
Actually gotta go for my lunch because it's my lunch time. So
Yes,
is that
yeah.
okay if I skip the class?
Yeah, beautiful. All right, well, big hugs and always a pleasure, Rohit. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So sorry to everyone. I have to really go.
Dandavad. You're always amazing, you know, how many things come through the, you know, the Gita, the reflections, the devotees. It's because our own devotional development from previous lives, what we've carried previously, we're all benefiting from each other's connection and consciousness, and questions are stimulated and reflections, and all going on by the mercy of the heavyweights, no doubt. You know, Prabhupada loved this. He, like, if he was here, he was able to participate, he'd be like, oh, you're reading my Bhagavad Gita as it is. He blessed his disciples for doing this. He'll be just blessing us also. He loved us. He loved us to come together and reflect and hear the words of Krishna and Arjuna. So, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj, myself, always happy, you know, to be able to be given the privilege, the chance. So thank you so much. Yes.
Jai Maharaj.
And Jenna for hosting, and Dale and Sudarshan and the reading, and
Thank you.
yes, beautiful, nice. Always. So everyone is like cultivating and making the garden beautiful. You know, hearing, reading, yeah. All. So this savor is honoring the king and queen of bhakti, of the 9 limbs of devotion, Shravanam, Kirtanam. It's very potent, and the 2 most important aspects of bhakti, hearing and chanting, questions and answers, reflections. And then from this will come Vishnu Smaranam, or Krishna Smaranam. We'll reflect something about this discussion, and yeah. And then dominoes, we may share that with somebody else. Yes.
Hey, I wanted to ask, has anybody here studied medicine?
No.
Okay, there was a really strange video I watched yesterday about how the Ramayana is actually describing the human body, and how the people are all just places of different things put everywhere. So I don't know, maybe I can share it on the group chat if you guys want to get into it a little bit. I don't know, I found it pretty interesting because I'm like, our life has been a lie now, you know, like people are making up excuses to call it in the name of religion. And I'm like, it's all just basic science, guys. Wake up.
Yeah, science, you know, sometimes science, you know, Prabhupada said that that in time it would come to marry theistic or transcendental revelation, because its investigation will eventually come into the molecular, and then the, you know, the God particle, the antimaterial particle, to some degree. It's like Srila Guru Maharaj once expressed in one of his books how what the mystic cities can do, science is already achieving that. Flying, passing through water, many things in science are similar to the cities of a yogi. Even the fact that we can communicate like this, we're seeing each other's forms. This is a type of city.
Relate to each other. One great.
I don't know how to share it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All right, well, always a pleasure, folks, and lots of love and affection, and yeah, have a good weekend, and looking forward to seeing everybody next Tuesday. And we'll keep everyone posted in regard to, I need to probably set up, so the 8 new people that I've connected in the US, Yasadev and Alex, I'll probably add you to, if that's okay with you, to some of those groups that we'll establish.
Yes.
Yeah, because we'll be doing book clubs, but smaller book clubs like this, and keeping it all focused to newcomers and yeah, those who, especially the teachings of Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, you know, like it is quite revelatory, many of the things. And we may even start with revealed truth, or maybe, yeah, something else of Srila Govinda Maharaj, because I want to sort of focus more these book clubs to their teachings. But Bhagavad Gita, I thought, it's universal, and Srila Govinda Maharaj recommended everyone to read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as a fundamental structure for bhakti. So it's a very important to go through. But anyway, let's see, but I'll keep you by posted. And always a pleasure, Jenna. Thank you for hosting. And yes, and good luck with you guys moving on Sunday.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing about your appointment tomorrow too.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give you a report in the afternoon, like when I get back. And thank you so much for setting it up.
Of course.
For me.
Help
really good. Help my health. All right. Big hugs. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.